Nintendo has been making video games for a long time, and I mean a long time, and of course after all these years, there are a lot of games that have simply been lost to time, or just simply left in the past, trapped on systems that haven't been released for years. So today I thought it would be fun to go back and see which games should be brought back and be put in the spotlight once again. Also real quick, I'm trying to reach the small goal of 1 jillion subscribers, so if we can reach that by the end of the year, then that would be great. Also, I want to preface this by saying that I won't be including any games that are a part of a series that continuously builds on itself, or quote-unquote has updated versions already available. And yes, I'm aware of licensing issues and all that legal stuff, but this is just mainly wishful thinking for either direct ports or HD remasters of some of these classic games. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get started. So the first game I want to discuss is Tomodachi Life, and I think this one kind of goes without saying. I mean, this was one of the most beloved games for its genre, similar to Animal Crossing, but just feels a little bit more personal just because of all the Miis and how you can import them. I mean, Animal Crossing was a great game in and of itself. I mean, you get to have fun, you get to interact with all these, well, as the name would imply, animals, and you get to build your own little area and that kind of thing, and that's kind of great and all. But when you actually have, I guess, industrial setting where you can build, let's say, restaurants and the news tower and of course the massive apartment building in the center of the island, there was just something so special about Tomodachi Life. And equally, you can build relationships, they can have children, you can move into like the retirement villages or whatever. There's a lot of things that keep you coming back to Tomodachi Life, and there was just like, I don't know, they have the same vibe similar to Animal Crossing. And like I said, this is one of the most beloved games on the 3DS, but out of all the games that involve Miis from the 3DS, the one that they wanted to bring back is Miitopia. I mean, it's a great game and all, but I mean, it's kind of just an RPG but with Miis. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or anything, but I mean, come on, compared to that game, compared to Tomodachi Life, I mean, Tomodachi Life was such a bigger game than that. I mean, if you ask some random person on the street or whatever, anybody who owned a 3DS, if they owned Tomodachi Life or Miitopia, I would guarantee to say that maybe like 7 times out of 10, they would say that they owned Tomodachi Life more so than Miitopia. And it's not like the Nintendo Switch is like completely done with the Miis. I mean, yes, they're more so moving away from them, as trying to access the Mii channel, quote unquote, on the Switch is so hidden because it's very deep within the settings and all that. I get that they're kind of trying to phase out the Miis, but I mean, come on, you could use Miis in Nintendo Switch Sports. Again, Miitopia was brought over, so clearly they have some affection towards the Miis still. So I mean, it's not like Tomodachi Life would be completely foreign in the Nintendo Switch library or anything, so I mean, why not bring this game over? And again, like I said, Miitopia is not a bad game. I'm just saying, of all the games they wanted to bring over, they brought over Miitopia, but not Tomodachi Life. I mean, come on. So many people are probably requesting for this, myself included. So, I mean, why wouldn't you want to bring this game? But that's just me. And moving on is Golden Sun. And this is a similar sort of Tomodachi Life, where this is a great RPG similar to Chrono Trigger, but this time for the Game Boy Advance. I mean, this isn't something too surprising because there are a lot of Golden Sun people who love the game out there, and they just been begging for some kind of update or reboot or port or just something from the series, because aside from the few entries that we got on GBA, we haven't really heard anything from Golden Sun. And one of the biggest reasons for me why Golden Sun should be ported over or at least brought into the spotlight again is how much attention Isaac, the main character from the game, actually gets, because you see him everywhere. He's in Smash Bros with his costumes, he has his own like whatever trophy, stickers, all kinds of stuff. He gets all this kinds of recognition in the Smash Bros series, but nothing from the Golden Sun franchise. And yes, I'm aware that Sakurai's reach can't expand all the way to Golden Sun because it's like a Camelot franchise and that kind of thing. But I mean, come on, just imagine how good it would be to see Golden Sun brought into, I don't know, like an HD remaster or just simply ported over. I mean, at this point, we'll just take anything for this franchise because aside from, like I said, the few entries on GBA, we have not heard anything, and this series is just pretty much dead aside from the Smash Bros references. And it's not even like, oh, well, it's just a niche game from the Game Boy Advance, so I mean, no one would really care about it. That's not necessarily true because yes, while niche RPGs still do well, I mean, there's more games out there that are similar to Golden Sun that have just blown out of the water. Like take Xenoblade or again Chrono Trigger, for example. Those games have like a cult following, I mean, one of which I'm a part of, so I would know. But I mean, these games are huge. Like when Xenoblade 2 came out, it was absolutely massive. Like literally everybody was playing this game. And a similar story could be for Golden Sun if it were to release. I mean, like I said, he gets all this kind of recognition in Smash Bros and that kind of thing. So if we brought Golden Sun into the light, people would kind of be like, oh, that guy from Smash Bros. Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah, I'll try his game out. You know, why not? So I don't know. I think it's just a matter of just, does Nintendo really want to bring this game to the spotlight? Or more so, does Camelot want to allow them to? But speaking of Smash Bros, another series that was brought back into the spotlight was the Kid Icarus franchise, as it was revived by the series creator Masahiro Sakurai. If you weren't aware, because it kind of was a niche game, but also not really, Sakurai actually brought Kid Icarus back into the spotlight by actually creating his own game, Kid Icarus Uprising, and honestly, it was a pretty decent game and it really put him back into the spotlight. The only problem is that Nintendo themselves just don't really seem to care about Pit or the Kid Icarus franchise all that much, as the only game that really gets resurfaced all the time is the original game, which to a degree has nothing resembling the Smash Bros character, which is what most people will know him as. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, what about the game made by the only guy that seems to care about expanding his universe? I mean, why not bring that game into the spotlight? Especially now that you actually have two sticks to work with instead of using the little stub on the 3DS to control the characters. I mean, it makes a lot more sense for this game to be ported over now that you're not trying to squeeze it onto a 3DS, trying to use the little stub and then the circle pad to control a 3D game. I mean, it's a cool game, but just honestly, it doesn't see any kind of recognition. It was just one of those games that just kind of happened and then like, okay, yeah, we're moving on. Nintendo just didn't really seem to bat an eye about it or want to expand his universe even more. And going back to Sakurai, what about Kirby's Dreamland? I mean, you know, the game that started the Kirby franchise, the first game of this Kirby series. And you might be thinking, oh, what are you talking about? Kirby gets re-released all the time. You know, Kirby's Adventure, it's literally on the NES Online Nintendo Switch service. And yeah, that's fine, that's cool, but that's the sequel. That's not the original Kirby's Dreamland. I mean, the Kirby series literally started as a Game Boy game with a little game called Kirby's Dreamland. And despite the fact that Kirby is this massive IP owned by a guy who's literally the head of Smash Bros, one of the biggest gaming IPs in the world, how is the original game that started it all not resurfaced more? I don't know, maybe it's just because, oh, well, it's dated, it's old, everything just kept, you know, building up from this original concept and dream or whatever. But I mean, take Mario, for example. I mean, a similar story can go for Mario, but you bet yourself that Nintendo will always willing to release Super Mario Bros. Over and over again, or the same thing for The Legend of Zelda or Metroid. I mean, all these games get resurfaced over and over again, so why not Kirby? I don't know, maybe it's a case of Sakurai, or maybe it is Nintendo truly just saying, you know what, we don't really care about Kirby that much. He has a game on the NES, we'll just put that out instead of the original first game. Out of all the series spotlights, really, why does Kirby not get the same kind of recognition as Mario or Link does? It just doesn't really make too much sense to me. And speaking of Metroid games, one of the best Metroid game as a whole, Metroid Fusion, is a game that really ought to be re-released. I mean, this one literally makes sense because Metroid Dread recently released and it picked up the story in both 2D Metroid games and as well as the actual story from Metroid Fusion, so it would make total sense to release this game now. Not only that, it would commercially be a good idea to re-release the Metroid Fusion games because, I mean, take Metroid Dread for example, that was one of the most successful, if not the most successful Metroid game out of any Metroid game. So I mean, seeing as how people really love the 2D franchise, why not go back to the story that was the originator to Metroid Dread, that being Metroid Fusion? It just makes too much sense to release this game. And again, similar to Golden Sun, it was just that one game on the GBA, which is fine. I mean, it's cool, it has its cult following, but imagine it in the mainstream, similar to Metroid Dread, where it actually can show itself in the spotlight and be like, wow, this is an amazing game. How did people not play this before? And the last game that I want to talk about here is just mainly a shot in the dark because, I mean, it probably never will happen, but it's wishful thinking, and that is Mother 3. Now, hear me out, right? The release of Mother, or I guess as they want to call it, Earthbound Origins on Switch Online, could potentially foreshadow Mother 3. But again, that's just a lot of people being wishful thinking, and this is honestly not possible because, I mean, it's been this long and there's still nothing. A fan translation has existed for the longest time, so Nintendo's probably just like, why even bother at this point? And the game would need to be changed due to certain moments in the game that wouldn't really fly in the modern age. But I mean, still, we can hold out hope because, I mean, come on, Mother 3 is so great. I mean, it's one of the greatest games in the Earthbound or Mother series. So, I mean, why not bring it over? I mean, Lucas is in Smash Bros. Most people know about the notoriety in this game and how Nintendo just won't localize it. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe they can do a 180 on us and eventually release this game. But I mean, like I said before, this is probably just a shot in the dark. I just wanted to put it out there, even though, like most people already know, this probably won't ever happen. And that's just a few of the games I think Nintendo should bring back. And obviously, this is not all of them, as there's plenty of games that deserve to be in the spotlight again for valid reasons, not just because an older iteration is better than the previous. I know there's a lot I missed, and I also now realize that all of these are from handhelds, but I mean, can you blame me? Nintendo will always jump at the chance to re-release NES games, but when it comes to anything else, especially their handhelds, they always skip out. So to combat this, I'll show a quick list of games that should be brought over, but didn't make it in this video because of reasons. This was just a fun video to hope for what could be, and if you have any games that you'd like to see again, then definitely let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, if you enjoyed, then feel free to leave this video a like and subscribe and all that jazz, and yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Take care.